Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to day six of Ace and Placed, uh, our placement preparation bootcamp. It's been lovely to have you all be here with us on this journey the past few days. Today's session will be on decoding guesstimates, taken by Mr. Tushar Singhal. Over to you, Charvi.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about guesstimates. If I ask you a question, what's the smartphone market size in Germany? You will think that such a complicated question, how to proceed with it, and you may even find it irritating that how to go about it. But once you know the steps, you will find it much more exciting. And don't worry, today we'll walk you through each step. Guesstimate solving is a must have skill for any case interview. Guesstimate, as the name suggests, is a combination of two words, guess and estimate. And it's just these two things put down in a structured way. And if you plan on having a career in the consulting industry, you definitely gonna need to know the skill on how to crack a guesstimate from being the market sizes of large conglomerates to revenues and populations. And even close to a ballpark is realistically impossible. But however, it's here that you must realize that guesstimation is never about an answer. It's about the approach that you use and how you proceed with. Over to you, Aditi.
So, for today's session, we are honored to introduce our speaker for the same, Mr. Tushar Singhal, who is the product manager at Microsoft. He has also served as the president of FMS Consulting Club and was part of the 2019 to 2021 batch of MBA cohort of Faculty of Management Studies and ranked fifth amongst the entire class. Previously, he has worked with Maruti Suzuki India as assistant manager. And not to forget, he graduated from Aligarh Muslim University with distinction. We are thrilled to have such an esteemed personality as part of our event. Now over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you for such a well welcome. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, thank you for inviting me for this session. Uh, I was in your place just a couple of years back, going through different workshops to understand how to do consulting cases, how to do estimates. And as Charvi mentioned, it's basically how it's just two words, guess and estimate. And what is the approach that you are taking? That is what is more important than rather what the exact number that you're going. So we'll have so I structured it within 1 hour that I'll briefly introduce you in 15-20 minutes. What is it? What are the different approaches that we can take around guesstimates, what we are supposed to do and what we are not supposed to do. And then we can try our hands on a couple of guesstimates and then look how actually they are done. And then have a Q&A session in the end that you to ask you anything that you found missing, anything that you need, or any other queries that you feel free to even interrupt in between to ask any question that you have. Uh, as interactive, make the session as interactive as possible so that everyone can understand what is your thought process also going through, and then maybe we all learn something new today. I'll be sharing my screen. Just let me know if it's visible. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So before we start with guesstimate, the first thing that we need to clearly understand is what is MISI. Okay, so there are a few things that we need to understand, and MISI is something that you will come across a lot in the consulting world. It is an acronym for mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Now, mutually exclusive means if you look at the understand from the Venn diagram. So if it's a universe is the square, there are two circles which are not intersecting. These are called mutually exclusive. One is not dependent on the another, and the second one is not dependent on the first. And collectively exhaustive. Collectively exhaustive means that both these ideas together, let's say circle one and circle two, represent the entire universe. There's nothing else outside this universe. Now, whenever you will face a problem, be it consulting problem, case problem, or a guesstimate problem, your thought process should be breaking it into messy components. And that's all you need to do to actually solve a case or to do a guesstimate or do anything. So first thing is the components that you are breaking into, they should not overlap. And second, all the components that you are breaking into together should describe the whole idea or the whole universe of idea that you are talking about. Okay. Once you are able to do MISI effectively, there is nothing that can go wrong in your case interview or a guesstimate in terms of breakdown or analysis or missing. So one of the major problems that we face in guesstimates is that we might forget a particular component in the analysis that we are doing, and that component might have a chunkable size, and because that size is missing, that entire estimate goes awry. So the idea here is you break it into components, and those components should be together should make the entire structure. Let's take some examples. So for example, if you have an unstructured grocery list like apple, milk, banana, spinach, carrot, grapes, butter, okra, eggs, okay, you can break it into a measly list using breaking into three components. Certain are dairy components, then there are fruits, and then there are vegetables. Now, no fruit is a vegetable, no vegetable is a dairy component, and no dairy component is a fruit. And once you are able to break it down, you are clearly able to break each item into these three lists. Now, if I ask you to remember the first list, the unstructured list versus the second list, what do you think would be easier for you to remember? The second one, obviously, because there you have structure, and now you know that whatever you're looking in dairy, milk, egg, butter. What are you looking in fruits? Apple, grapes, banana. What are you looking in vegetables? Spinach, carrot. So the entire universe was your 9 items. You broke it into 3 components, and these 2 components were not overlapping. You cannot put apple into dairy. You cannot put apple into vegetables. Right? That is the basic idea of a MECE structure, that you break it into components, the entire universe into components that are mutually exclusive, and then all components are covered. So all 9 items are here, that is collectively exhaustive, and then it is broken into mutually exclusive components. Let's take another example. So you guys are all commerce students, you understand what are profit, revenue minus costs. These are the only 2 components that it can be broken into. Now it can further break into how revenue comes and how cost makes up, but the basic structure would be always revenue minus. Within the cost, you can have fixed cost versus variable cost. Or you can have components like a value chain, starting from R&D to the first component, then manufacturing, then operation, then distribution, and then sales and after sales marketing, all those components you can have. So raw material, R&D, all those things. Or you can have a fixed versus variable cost. And whatever a fixed cost is not a variable cost, whatever variable cost is not a fixed cost. There can be a third component called mixed costs, which are step-up kind of costs. So you break it into, again, 2 components. What is the fixed component of it and what is the variable component? Similarly, if you look at geography, you can break, if you look at revenue, you can break it geography-wise, maybe what generally most sales company do in India, all FMCG company break the country into zones, which are North Zone, East Zone, South Zone, West Zone, Central Zone. Then they further break these zones into states, and then further these states into maybe cities or areas. So that is the MECE approach that they take. So you can break revenues from coming from different customer segments. So one big segment can be B2B, one big segment can be B2C. That is how a lot of companies which are involved in both segments try to do it. So let's consider Microsoft, for example. It has both B2B products and B2C products. From what percentage of revenue is coming from B2B, what percentage of revenue is coming from B2C, those kinds of things. Then you can break revenues into revenue streams, which can be ads, from how much we are earning from ads, how much we are earning from the actual sales, how much we are, which is covered in distribution. And then you can break even distribution channels, It can be online distribution channel or retail channel. Any question on MECE structure? Sure.
No, sir.
Sure. So let's see how other, or other ways are there to break MECE structure. So for example, take customer segmentation. You can, as earlier we were discussing, customer segments can be B2B or B2C. Now, within B2C, you can further divide it into low income, middle income, and high income. Now, because you will define what are the boundary of income is, whatever you define, let's say you define low income as per the UN guideline, or you define it on your own way. Okay, I consider low income anyone earning less than X, then medium income anyone between X and Y, and anyone greater than Y is high income. Now, these are very clearly defined boundaries. A person would not lie in two categories here. Similarly, if you're looking at, if you break your clients into institutions, organization, which is basically B2B, now you can further break it into public sector institutions or private sector institutions. Now, these are also mutually exclusive. An organization be either a public sector institution or a private sector institution. If it's joint, then you can have a third component, but a company following it for a company coming into PPP kind of model will be there only. It will not be something that can be classified either as private or public. Or let's look at the last example, which is increasing sales. So what are the ways to increase sales? There are just two ways. One, you increase sales per customer. Whatever you are earning per customer, what is your average revenue per customer, you increase that. Second is that you increase the number of customers. So sales, the basic formula is average revenue per customer into number of customers. That is your total sales, right? These are the two components in the sales. And these are the only two ways you can increase it. One is you increase either the number of customers. Second is you increase the sales per customer. Now, when you come on to sales per customer, you can look at what is the average price that they are paying, or what is the average quantity they are buying the visit. And then you can look at, okay, how do I increase the quantity, which is in the same visit, they start buying more. Or how do I increase, or I can increase the price of the product that they are buying, and then it will increase my investment. Similarly, if you look at increasing customers, there's two ways. You start into you start serving new markets. Your product is maybe specific to a region, and you start moving it into regions where it's not already selling, or you start moving it to new products, new segments which your company is not into there, and then you start earning from them, and you have a larger customer. So the MECE principle suggests to understand and fix any large problem, you need to break it into categories. And when you break it into categories, you understand, you avoid any dependencies or reconsider. So you avoid duplication also. You do not take same factor again. And once you have broken it into different branches, it's very easy for you to calculate for that particular branch. And then you just need to sum up the total to above so that you can have a final value of where we are going. Okay, this entire slides and everything, I've taken it from my session from Consulting Club, FMS. We used to have these sessions there, and this is from I'm taking, and these are very helpful in their own terms. The second principle that you need to understand is the Pareto Principle. Now, most of you must already know about what is Pareto Principle, right? In sales, it's a very common phenomenon. In general things also, it's a very common phenomenon. If you have read any motivation or self-help or any kind of those books, there it is very common. This common phenomenon comes that it is called the 80-20 rule, which is that 80% of your results come from 20% of efforts. Now, then it is categorized differently. So, for example, for most companies, 80% of their revenue comes from 20% of the customers. And this is a very common phenomenon found across industries. So, or 20% of the products that you meant in manufacturing, you find that 20% of the product lines generate 80% of the scrap because of the volume that those 20% of the products sell. Or if you look at service industry, 20% of tickets take 80% of the time. So tickets basically closing of certain tickets. So service industry tickets essentially mean for example, you are logging a complaint to your phone provider, your Airtel, Geo, all those companies. So there also it's a very commonly observed phenomena that 20% of the tickets, that the time that they take to close these 20% of tickets, it will be 80% of the time that they totally spend on closing the tickets. The rest is 80% of the tickets will be very common tickets which can be easily closed within the 20% of the time. So where does it come handy? In a lot of cases. So for example, whenever you need to generalize across cases, across guesstimates, you can have this principle applied that, I know that 80% of the sales probably will come from 20% of the customers, and I know these 20% of the customers. So I can estimate for these 20% of the customers, and then I can get 80% of the sales, and just then I need to multiply it by 1.25 and I'll have the overall sales. Right. But do not apply it blindly. So you cannot say you cannot apply it for each and everything. You can apply it for processes. Okay. Read a bit more, where Pareto Principle is applicable. It's a very common phenomenon, so it is applicable at a lot of places. But we cannot apply it blindly to all and every phenomena. That would make your guesstimate or your case now. So understand where it's applicable, and then you can have a lot of impact, by investing your efforts in just identifying this 20% of whatever you can identify, this 20% category or 80% idea. So 20% efforts, if you are able to estimate, then you will be able to completely do this guesstimate. Now, coming on to guesstimates, what are they looking for? So guesstimates are not, so they are just looking at your ability to think on your feet. How good, so they'll give you something that they know that you don't know. They'll give you something, a question. And guesstimates can be anything. It can be very, so it can be very specific to, whatever you are discussing, or it can be very general. So what do you mean by specific? For example, if you have written in your CV that, or if you show that you have worked in I'll give my example. So I used to work before MBA into Maruti Suzuki. So they asked me to estimate the market size of EV vehicles, in electric vehicles in India, because and this is very specific to me because I had the experience of automobile industry. And in just one of the interviews, they asked me to guesstimate. Okay, consider you do not have any measuring scale, and you want to measure the area of this country. How will you do it? It can be also very general. One of my friends was asked, okay, estimate the number of white shirts in Delhi. So it is just there, and it's not. I mean, it's not easy to even estimate. Okay, what are the number of white shirts in Delhi? The first question that will come. Okay, I am asking about today. Am I asking about the whole year? At what instant are we asking? Then, what do we exactly mean white? Can you consider off white, yellow? All those also in this. Very weird question, but it is looking at how do you approach this problem, and how you are thinking on your feet when you are presented with a situation which you are not aware of. And third thing, although it is not the major determiner, but they are looking at how quickly you are able to do math in your mind. And why it's required. So you need to be in client interaction a lot of times. So you'll need to understand how you can, you may be pitching an idea to client, and the first question the client asks is, okay, what do you think is the market size of this idea? And then you need to come up with, maybe at that moment within 10 minutes, okay, I think this is the market size of this particular product that I am pitching. And then you can go back and do a very thorough analysis and then also come up with the exact number. But you can actually explain the approach that you might take, that what is the idea that you are looking at and how you are going to do. So a lot of guesstimates, it's just looking at your ability to think, how you are able to uh, go to a client and give a meaningful structure to whatever you are thinking, and what are the numbers that you can put on that thing. Okay. Uh, what it gives, the interviewer, what they're looking at, they're looking at the logical thinking, and the second part they are looking is how well you are at communication and presenting your ideas. So presentation also matters a lot when you are doing all these guesstimates, which comes from the sheet of paper that you do your guesstimate on. So how essentially after every interview they check. So I'll tell you what happens. So in an interviewer calls in an candidate, does do a case, do a guesstimate, and they go. And the sheet is there only, and it's submitted. Now, once all the interviews are done, 18, 20, 25, whatever the number of candidates are, then they reevaluate based on the sheet. And they try to remember, okay, this one is I gave to that candidate, and this is from that candidate. This one sheet is from that candidate. Now, they'll again look at the sheet at this moment and understand, okay, how did you solve it? And did you do it right? Not right. And right or wrong is second. Even if they're not able to understand what you did from that sheet at that moment, the chances are that you are not going further in the next round, because that person has now taken 20 people interview or case, and it's very difficult now to remember what each person did and how it. Second, they might also do it, just after interview, they look at the sheet and then they define, okay, this is the score I want to give. That they also do based on the sheet. So your sheet and how you have presented the entire idea, that also becomes very important in case and in guesstimates. When it's online, then it's just based on the communication that you are doing. But if it goes offline, so we used to have a lot of offline interviews. Our sheets used to be submitted within the interview room only, and they definitely look at the sheet and then determine, okay, how this person is going to go ahead. Okay, now looking, so ideal time is 15 minutes that you complete a guesstimate. If it's a difficult one, you can take up 20 minutes. Ideally, 10 to 15 minutes is a good time to, from the start to end, to do a guesstimate. And believe me, 10 minutes are a lot of time to do a guesstimate. Coming on to approaches. So there are two approaches that you can generally take to do a guesstimate. One is a top-down approach, that you start from the top and you keep on breaking it into smaller chunks, to a chunk where you can say, okay, I understand this chunk, I can calculate for this chunk, and from this I can move up. That is how you go in the top-down approach. The bottoms-up approach is the reverse. So you start with a lot of small blocks at the bottom, and then you try to consolidate your way up to the final value. When I give an example, it will become much easier. So for example, if I ask something like something specific to Delhi, number of auto rickshaws in Delhi. Okay, now number of auto rickshaws in Delhi, you can do it in two ways. So one is you look at, okay, this is the total sales in India of automobiles. I'll break it into three components. One would be the urban areas, then there are tier 1 and tier 2 cities, and then there are rural areas. And I'll say, okay, rural areas do not see a lot of auto sales, then tier 1, tier 2 city might see X, and then urban areas might see, or the tier 1 cities might see Y. And then I'll say there are 10 tier 1 cities. So if I'm able to calculate Y, and let's say Delhi, all tier 1 cities almost have equal number of autos. So I'll say this is what the value that I'll get. There can be other approaches. You can take the population approach. Okay, this is the population of Delhi. This is what is the number of autos required per person, and then you'll do it. So the first approach, which I said, you came from top to bottom. You took at what are the total sales in India. You broke it into different regions, and then you broke it into tier 1 cities, and then from tier 1 cities you came to Delhi. Second approach would be that you look at, okay, an autos, let's say in a 1 square kilometer area, usually this is the amount of autos required if it's a residential area, and if it's a commercial area, this is the amount of auto requires. And then you from that, okay, I consider that Delhi might have 50 commercial areas and 500 residential areas. So if you're able to calculate for one, you multiply the household area average by 500, the second one by 50, and then you add that number. That is the bottom approach. You can take both the approaches in a case. Essentially, as earlier mentioned, it's the thought process that you're looking. So if you're saying that is in a 1 kilometer square area, and let's say X is the number of average or autos required to serve the public, how are you coming at that number? Sorry, is there a question? The second approach, so the top down to bottom approach works for most of the cases. Most of the cases that you will have or face you will be able to solve via the top down or bottom approach. Second thing that you can look is, for market estimation types of case, you can look at supply side and demand side approach. So demand side approach essentially means how much is the demand coming in. So you go via the population. So this is the population in this area. This is the average demand in this amount of population. And then you try to break it into, okay, this is what would be the requirement for this particular product and based on the price of that product, this is the average market size of this product. A second is, let's say you look at the supply side approach, which is if I say, okay, again, let the question be what is the number of auto rickshaws in Delhi? You look at, okay, there are 3 plants which are manufacturing around Delhi, and each plant produce X number of autos per day, or the first one produce X, second one produce Y, third one produce Z. Let's say out of the total produce, because they are nearby Delhi, 80% or 70% of the sale, they might be doing it to Delhi only. So this is the total amount of autos that might be present in Delhi. And then you can factor in, okay, that auto may go into 5 years. So at a moment, this in a particular year, this would be the number of autos available in Delhi. And then every 5 years, they might replace and all those things. Supply side approach is the most difficult one to go for. But if you are able to do it correctly, there is a very high probability that you will move through that round, because it is very difficult to do through supply side. And most people that do cases or solve cases do it from demand side approach. So you already create a differentiating factor in the mind of the interviewer when you go through supply side. But as I mentioned, supply side cannot be gone through for each case or each guesstimate, and it is a bit difficult to go from demand side. The idea should be to do it correctly rather than taking up the challenge. Okay, I go from supply side and then watching up the case. Okay.
Tushar, I have a little doubt.
Sure, go ahead.
Like you said in the supply side that there were 3 factories close to Delhi, and we assume that 80% of them, the autos that they produce, are in Delhi only. So how do we explain this number 80% to the interview? Like he may ask a counter question to us that how are you deciding upon that number?
Right. So you can, yeah. So coming on to the second number, so let's say, yeah. So for example, if it was for me, so I knew okay, there is a Honda plant for manufacturing 2-wheelers, 3 places nearby Delhi, and I know that it is used to serve Delhi market, and then from Delhi it might go to other parts. So I used to know. So essentially, plants are located to nearby geographical market that they wish to serve. So it can be that Delhi plant. It might serve Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan, and all those places. You can say these might be serving these 4 places, and then you can break it into, let's say, population percentage. Okay, Delhi might require, and Delhi have a higher percentage of affluent people, and this is the population. Then this is the population of Rajasthan. This is the population of Haryana. This is the population of Punjab, and in that proportion you can break it. Second way, you can say, okay. For me, it used to be I would say, okay, I worked in this industry. I have read this report, and I'm quoting this report to support this fact. Okay, but then you need to be true, because they can check whatever number that you are saying. It's actually from that report, and it is actually true or not. And they'll check. They can check at the moment. They have laptops and all those things in them. So that's true. That's how you go about it, and that's how you are supposed to. Okay, you can say that I have read it and this is based on this particular report, and that is also okay. Or you can come up with a way, okay, you say 80%, so then you do not say 80%, you say, okay, this is the factory, these are the markets that it will serve, because the factory is generally located nearby to the market it is supposed to serve. So these are the four markets. This is the population breakup in those markets. And this is the percentage of population that might be, so who might be buying two-wheelers. So uh, more affluent people try to buy. So the average income in Delhi is this. The average income in Rajasthan is a bit low. In Punjab is a bit high. Haryana is between Rajasthan and Punjab. So you can say in this proportion into population, I'll try to break up this sales number around it. Or you can take, okay, I read it in the report that this is the amount of two-wheelers in Delhi, and these are the ones that are manufactured every year in Delhi. So this is the number that's coming out. Okay. So quickly we'll go through, okay, what is top-down approach? You know, start with an entire population and then break it until you arrive at an answer. So you start with the universe, you break it into certain categories, and then you sub-break it into other categories, and then you finally find out, okay, what's number. So, you know, at the bottom, it would be A1 plus A2 plus A3, and then it is, let's say, written wrongly. Segment B would be B1 and B2, and the entire sum would be A1, A2, A3 plus B1 plus B2. Okay, now segments can be based on demographics, based on psychographics, based on geography, or however you want to divide. Just follow MISI. That's the only thing. Demographics is a good way to divide. You know, if it's a product that is used more by youth or more by children, then you can break it into demographics. Okay, this is the population. Maximum percentage of user of this particular product are children. This is the percentage of population. This is the percentage of children within this particular area or within this country, and that's how you break it in. You can further break it, okay, after you can break it into age groups, 0 to 18, for young, your whatever age group that you think. And then within that also, if you believe that the buying behavior is different for male and female. For example, if you say you have to estimate around cosmetics. So you say, okay, men would be buying less than female. So you can break it into male and female segment within the age group. So you can say first one, okay, the age group that might be using would be from 13 to 50 or 55. And then within that, the maximum percentage will be coming from 30 to, so I'll break it into two segments, 30 to 27, which is the primary user, which are very much into new products also. And then from 27 to 40 secondary users, and then 40 above tertiary users. Now, within the first user, you break it again into male and female. How percentage of male do you think are using, and then how much percentage of female of the entire segment might be using? That's how you can further break it up. And then on the third segment, you can break it up into, let's say, income group. So segment A, segment A1. So for example, segment A is age group, which is 0 to, segment A is male or female. Then segment A1 may be the age group that you're talking about, 13 to 27. And then you can further break it into income group, so poor, middle class, or high class, and then poor might be least interested, middle class fairly interested, and high class very interested. Then the bottomless approach, as I told you. So for example, if someone asks, okay, estimate the number of Domino's pizza sold within Delhi in a day. So you can start with a store. So I'll take an example of a store, and I'll then assume that all stores sells on an average the same number, and I'll take the estimate of one store and multiply it by the number of stores that might be there into Delhi. So this is the number that you'll take. The first one is average sale per store into number of stores in Delhi. Now you will find out, okay, how do you calculate number of stores in Delhi? You can say, okay, the total area of Delhi is around X square kilometers, and you break it into that. Within each 5 square kilometer, there is a Domino's. So X upon 5 is the number of stores that I'll find. And then you estimate the first part, which is the what would be the average sale in one store. And then you can, there are ways how you calculate it, but once you do it, so this is a bottoms up approach. You found out for one and then you are extrapolating it for others. And then from the single block, you are scaling up. Okay. It is, so two things, bottoms up is more impressive and supply side is more impressive, given that you are doing it right. And by right, it's always, by doing it right, it actually always means being in the ballpark. You can never estimate the exact correct number. It is the approach that you are taking is right, and you're logically putting whatever thoughts that are coming to you. Okay. Sometimes, just to cross check. So if you had a guesstimate and you have time left, you did it from top down approach, you came to a number, you can again do it by bottoms up there only. You can say, okay, I wish to verify this number and I'm doing it from bottoms up. And if the numbers are close enough, you'll say, I think I'm right in right place, that, from both the approaches, the number is coming in the nearby area or in a nearby range. If from top down, your answer is coming 10 million and from bottom up, it's coming 10,000, then there is obviously one of those approaches is wrong. But if from both the approaches it's coming, from first it's coming 10 million, from second one it's coming, let's say even 5 to 6 million, we can say, okay, they might be nearby, there might be some component missing, or if it's in between 8 to 12 million, bingo. If it's 6 to 15 million, you can say, okay, it's in the nearby ballpark figure. I might have missed a certain component, but we are within the same range. But if one approach gives you 10,000, that is giving you 10 million, you are wrong in either one of the approaches. Okay. Okay, so I'll quickly go through do's and don'ts, and then we'll have 10 minutes to do a small guesstimate, and then we can go through our questions. Okay. Okay, so whenever a guesstimate comes, it might be that the person might have been very broad in asking you that particular question. Estimate the number of white shirts in Delhi. You need to clarify the objective. Okay, are you asking it at a particular instance in a day? Are you asking it? So, for example, if you say estimate the number of white shirts in Delhi. Now, I know for a fact that school children, most of the schools have white shirt as their uniform. So if that comes into your mind, you can ask, if you are asking for a particular instance, should we consider that it's a weekday because that will impact the answer, or are you just asking? So the second thing that you can come, okay, is it all white shirts, or are you just asking how many people at this moment might be wearing a white shirt, and that is what you want me to calculate, or at a particular time of day, how many people might be wearing a white shirt. So sometimes the interviewer might give you very broad a question, and then you have to narrow it down to what is the exact object. Some might ask you, okay, estimate the EV size, EV market size. You can ask, okay, are you asking for India? Are you asking for the entire world? Then even if someone asks you, okay, give me the market size of EV in India. So you can ask, okay, should I calculate for two-wheeler? Should I calculate for four-wheeler? So you can have a couple of clarifying questions in starting to actually understand what is the interviewer looking for. The interviewer there and then might say, okay, I'm just looking for four-wheeler EV market. And then you can discard all auto rickshaws and two-wheelers from your calculation. You just need to focus on four-wheeler cars. So whenever the question is placed to you, you come up with a clarifying question. What is it that you are looking for? And be very precise in asking that question. And once you are able to ask that question clearly, you will be able to understand what is exactly the interviewer looking for. Otherwise, you might be missing in a lot of places, because if you are not clarifying the objective, you might start with doing this guesstimate, let's say EV, or maybe the shirt one. And then you might think, okay, there might be stores and go downs where this white shirt might be there. How do I calculate that part? Or there might be, all these three-wheelers that are running in e-rickshaws that are running in. These are also electric vehicles. Should I consider them within the formulation? And then the way to calculate for those will be different to the way you will calculate for four-wheelers. So then it's very difficult at that moment to come back and say, okay, should I calculate this also? This also tells that you were not very clear at the starting what was asked to you. So First, clearly clarify what is the interviewer asking. Then take a couple of minutes to think how would you approach this problem. Top down, bottoms up, supply side, demand side. Think of the approaches that you think is the best that will suit this particular solution. Okay. Explain the solution that you are going for. So when you say explain the approach that you are taking, it's better that if you break it into a simple equation. Uh, let's say, how do you break it into a simple equation? So number of Domino's pizza sold. You say, okay, I'm assuming that I'm taking in Delhi. So you take, okay. In this case, you might say, okay. So if someone asks you, can estimate the number of Domino's pizza sold within Delhi, you can ask the clarifying question here can be, are you asking just in-store sales or are you asking online sales also? Okay, and then you can, when the interviewer might say, okay, both, then you calculate for both. So this might be the clarifying question that you might come. Then you take up the approach. Okay, the approach that I want to take is I'll want to calculate. So I'll break this equation into two parts. One is the total sale would be average sale per store and the number of stores in Delhi. And this is the simple equation that you have broken your problem into. Now you calculate the first part, you calculate the second part, and you'll have the final. So that is the approach that you should go for. If you are able to break it into simple equation before you move into that tree diagram thing, before you move to your structure and how you go into each segment, it's best that you, if you are able to come up with a small equation, a simple multiplication equation of 3-4 factors, or a simple multiplication or division based equation also, or addition, any equation that you think, if you're able to come up with that equation, then it clarifies, okay, what you are going to do and how you are going to do. Then do mention your assumptions, whatever assumptions that you're doing firsthand, and then start, you start at the top, you write the case. I'll show how we do it. I'll show the sheet also. You then write the assumptions, you write the approach, and then you start drawing your tree structure of, or this breakdown MEC structure of how you do it. Okay. Whenever you are making any assumption, and you will have to make certain assumptions while doing a guesstimate, otherwise it will go too long. You confirm with the interview, okay, I am taking this assumption. Is this okay? So if this one that comes, you were saying, I'm assuming 80% of the sales might go to Delhi. I'm taking this assumption based on something that I write. Is it okay? And the interviewer might say yes, or he might say no. And you might, if that person says yes, you go ahead with your analysis. If the person is saying no, rethink of a approach that you can take. Whenever you are stuck, take time, think about it. Take 30 seconds, take 1 minute. You can always take time. You can simply say, can I take some time to think about it? Can I take some time to think about it? And that shows that you are not breaking under pressure. You are not blabbering under pressure. You are thinking how do you will logically approach this problem. Okay. Also, even during estimate, keep on communicating. Whatever, thinking out loud. So whatever approach that you are taking, whatever numbers that you are coming at, keep saying that, okay, the first segment, okay, this is the first segment and this is the number that I got. I think this is right. Then I move to the second segment. And the final one, you calculate your answer, and once that is done, if the interview says, do you think this is right? Do you think, or do you have another approach to go for this? Then you can, as I mentioned, you have already gone top down, you go for bottoms up. If you can think of it, you go a bottoms up approach and triangulate to confirm that whatever number you are getting is right. Okay, always take time. Use good tree diagrams, normal diagrams, anything that explains your thought process very clearly. Whatever assumption that you are taking, may make it based on certain facts. It can be also from personal experience, but it should be logical. And keep the entire session very engaging. What you should not do, you can ask a couple of clarifying questions. You do not need to ask a lot of clarifying questions. So do not go beyond a couple of clarifying questions. whatever approach that you have taken, do not ask after you explain. So you explained, okay, this is the approach I'm taking, and then you say, okay, should I go ahead with it? That's okay. You do not go, okay, okay, these are the three approaches. Which one should I take? You should already know which one is the best one, and you should say, okay, I'm going with this one. These are the three approaches that are coming to my mind, and I think I'll take the first one because it is the best approach. Why? Do you explain why it is the best approach? Okay. Do not start solving whenever just the question comes. Ask clarifying question, explain your approach, and then start solving. Fourth thing, you need to have certain numbers on your fingers handy. Population of Delhi, 2 crores. Uh, Income distribution in Delhi. Okay. Population of India, area of Delhi, area of India. These kinds of things are very handy when it comes to estimates, because from there you can easily calculate. So, area of India, 3.28 square kilometer, area of Delhi, 1500 square kilometer something. Population of Delhi, 2 crore, population of India, 120 crores, something. So you have to have these numbers handy whenever you do it. Then do not be text heavy on a sheet. Always use diagrams, always use structure, these blocks to explain it, and then uh, have a good handwriting. I mean, not good handwriting, just that whatever sheet that you make, it should be legible. Handwriting is not a constraint. Whatever you are writing on the sheet should be legible. So it's better that you make blocks and structures, so it's very easy to read those. Do not go for guessing the numbers, directly. What is the number of pizzas sold in Delhi? He said 10,000, and then you start. Okay, this might be the way that it might come to 10,000. Never go the number. They are not even looking for the numbers. If you are able to give your approach correctly and then triangulate to it how you are doing it, most of the time they'll stop you, at 10-minute mark. Okay, I understood how you are going through it, and I understood your approach, and that's good enough. And then do not keep doing things in your mind. As I mentioned, think out loud. Keep on talking to them how you're going to do. Okay. Let's do a small guesstimate, and then we do not have 10 minutes. So let's try it in 5 minutes. I'll show how it's actually done, and for others, I'll share this deck so that you can go through it and look at other approaches around that also. Okay. Uh, do you want to take some time and do, estimate the number of school in Delhi? Let's take 5 minutes. Everyone try it and then tell me your approach. What is the approach that you took to do this? Okay, let's take 5 and try to do this.
Hi, so I just had a preliminary question. When we say about school, what exactly counts as a school? Like those play schools also count, and colleges, do they count as well? Like what
Good
counts as a
question.
school?
Let's say 0 to 12. I mean, from
Okay.
place uh, to 12th. Do not consider colleges in your estimation.
So the demand side approach, from what I could think, could be we could calculate how many students or how many children can actually go to school. This could be done using like the age and the income filter. Then we'll have the number of students who could go to actually school. We could calculate how many students a school can accommodate. This could be like using class into section and how many students can there be in a class. And once we have that, we can just divide the total number of students that can go to school by the number of children in school to get number of schools.
Great. Good approach. Go ahead with it. Everyone, please use pen and paper to solve this thing however you wish to do. But use a pen and paper to actually do this. Take your time. Do not be worried. Ki I might be wrong. I think take your time. Do it. Uh, Whatever approach that you take, we'll discuss what approach did you took, why it might be right or wrong. But at least try.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
Yes, so the one approach may be from like the population of Delhi is around 2 crore, and we estimate that the students must be around 20 lakh in Delhi, around 10% of the total population. And if we go through the distance of the Delhi, distance of the Delhi, and the carrying capacity of one school must be around 2,000, not more than 2,000. If we see from preliminary to our senior secondary education. So, like if we divide our 2,000, and from 2,000, if we exclude the 5 to 6% of the students who are from the slum area and can't able to go to the school, so then we are left with only 15 to 16% of the students that are around to the 15 or 16 lakh. And if there is a capacity of 2,000 per students and divide with 2,000 around approximately, so then we come to the around 2,000 schools in Delhi, not around 2,000 around schools in Delhi.
Good. Uh, Good approach. I'd say we have taken a lot of assumption within this approach. So for example, how did you come up with the 10% students number in that age group? Or you said that average capacity is 2,000. That's in the ballpark, but how do you actually calculate that?
Okay, sir. So, like,
Right?
sir, I have to give to the assumptions की हर चीज की like हमें verification देनी पड़ेगी like.
They might have. So in this case, you have already solved the guesstimate and you gave me the final number, which might be around 2,000 schools in Delhi. And I would say this is in the ballpark. Okay. So that's not bad, but your case is finished at this moment, right? The moment you told me, okay, this is the number, it's finished, right? So you told me your approach would be that this is the number of students that are school going students, and second would be you look at how many students each school can accommodate, and you break it in. You will divide them, and that is your approach. I'm not asking for number now. How do you come up with the first thing, that is the number of school going children, right? You cannot just say okay. You can take that approach also, but then you need to be you need to explain that approach. So for example, you said the population of Delhi is 2 crores, right? Now you can say the median age of India is 27. So that means that 50% of the population is below the age of 27. So that means 1 crore people are below the age of 27. Second thing that you now within this, I am taking that within this, let's say everyone is equally distributed. So, and I'm taking this number to be 25. So each age group has 4 lakh students. 4 lakh, so 0 to 1, there are 4 lakh kids, 1 to 2, there are 4 lakh kids. You understood this approach? Now from this, okay, let's say 0 to 3, 3 to, now this is how you break it into. Now both the first estimation that you took, the first assumption that you take 2 crores, that's a valid assumption. The population of Delhi. Second assumption that you took, that is a fact, that the median age of India is 27. You can even round it off to 25 and say, okay, I'm taking it 25, and that means 1 crore people are less than 25. The third assumption that you took in this approach was, okay, let's say uh, this is uniformly distributed. Generally, it is not, but then you can say, okay, I'm taking a that this is uniformly distributed. So 25 is the age group, 1 crore is the population. Then say for each age segment, if I break it into 1 years, 4 lakh people are there. Now from there you break it. Now in this approach, what you also missed is that uh, okay, when people, so a lot of people start from primary education, but a lot of students do not go up to 12th or 10th or even 10th. So there's a lot of dropout rate within each segment, right? So you can have so you need to further break it between 0 to 18 into segments, saying that a lot of people just get educated up to 5th. Then there are segment which get educated from 5th to 10th, and then there's segment that very small segment that get educated from, not very small, but let's say a smaller segment that goes from 10 to 12th. So you, in this approach, you're also taking the factor of that there's a lot of dropout rate, and that this dropout rate is very high in poor children as compared to middle class and high class. Let's start with the approach, and as most of you mentioned, this is the how you go, and this is the right approach. You'll go. Okay, number of school-going children in Delhi, and then average children in one school. Now, the first part you need to calculate is what is the school-going children in Delhi, and second part is average children in one school. So you calculate both, and this is how you can do it on a sheet also. So you take, the population of Delhi is around 20 million. It's a young country, so we can assume 50% of 25, and that would make 10 million or 1 crore is around 125. Now, if I break it, each year the number of students would be 4 lakhs. Now I am breaking it into age 0 to 3, kindergarten, class 1 to 5th, 6 to 10th, and 12th. Okay, once you do it, you can have the exact number. You can say 0 to 3, nobody goes to school. Let's say education starts at 3, and whoever starts education goes at least up till 5th. So most of the people that you find are, people say, okay, metrics tak padhe, which is 12th tak padhe, 10th tak padhe, ya 8वीं tak ya 5वीं tak padhe, all those things. Okay, then there is middle school, which is 6 to 10th, and then there is senior secondary school, which is 11th and 12th, and you have the numbers. Now we are not considering above 18. So the clarifying question was also very good. Okay, now you break it into class. So you say, okay, 40% people in Delhi are, and this is a good estimation for Delhi. So you can always take this estimation that 40% are middle class and above, 40% are lower class, and 20% are below poverty line. Now, people who are below poverty, so who are, and then you have to provide. So anyone in middle class and above will always send their school, and they'll at least completed 12. So you have this percentage number. Now, people in lower class, they do not go for 12th education. A lot of them cannot go for 12th education. This is, and there is middle class, which might go lower class, which might go up to 75%, and then very small percentage of them do not even get primary education, 90%. Now there are people which are below poverty line for which education is a luxury. This is how they break, and then people in below poverty line do not tend to send their children after 40 into schools because they want people to help in the economic aspects of their life. And you can take this dimension and say, okay, this is the 0%. If you want to go more detailed, there's no need, but you can either further break it down into male and female, and the female dropout rate is more than male dropout rate. There's no need to go there because you already have broken it into those values. Now, once you are done, it's very easy to calculate. So you just need to put these numbers into this 40% of this. You just need to calculate. And this is how you will calculate. So 0.4 into 100% of 2.8, 100% of 2, and 100% of 0.8 students. Now, next 0.4, 0.9. This is the number of students. So you got that approximately 43 or 44 lakhs are the number of students going in Delhi. So you got the first part of the equation, school-going children in Delhi. Right? Let's move to the second part, which is the average children in one school. So you can again break schools into, there are small schools, there are medium schools, and there are large schools. And you can have this portfolio distribution. And this is the class size and section size. So a small school might have uh, three sections, and each section might have 10 students. Or medium school might have, and you can have these numbers, whatever, you can have this 30, 40, 50. This is the average number that you might come up with your experience in school. So you can say, okay, my experience in school, I've seen that, in general, there were 40 students in a class, and that was a large school. Or there were 30 students in a class. That was the ratio that we used to mention. And there were four sections, six sections, whatever it is. And this is how you calculate the average student in one school, which comes based on this number, it came to be around 1400. This can be 2000 also, based on whatever size and this you come up with. And this size and section is based on your experience. You can mention. Nobody will say why you are taking 3 here or why you are taking 4 here. This is in general what is the classification is there. Most of the schools have 3 sections, 4 sections, 5 sections, between 3 to 5. You cannot say okay 10 sections, 15 sections, which is very rare. But this is the general distribution. And this is how you go to the segment. Now you have the first part of the equation, you have already have the second part of the equation, you just need to divide, and the number would come around 31. Now this is, again, I'm saying this is an estimation, this might not be the correct number. These percentages might be different. If we further break it down into male, female, school going rate and all those things, we can have even a better number, and this number might move a bit. But you understood what expected out of you and how you did it, and this is what was expected out of you, and this is the approach that you took. And if you can see the sheet, there's not a lot of writing. There's a lot of diagram, but so you have a table and you have a breakup. You have a table and you have a breakup and a small calculation. And this is how clean you can have your actual case sheet also, and this will help you all. Okay, I think we are running out of time. Do I have some time? Is there another session?
No, sir, we don't have something else planned. We can continue.
Can I take 5 more minutes if everyone is okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's a
Sure.
pleasure.
Thank. Any questions on this approach? Anything? Anyone who came up with a different approach? Someone who was thinking
Basically,
differently to solve this
I
problem.
I
Yeah.
just had a question.
Go ahead. Your voice is too low, but go ahead.
So basically, I wanted to know, like, as you mentioned that the access to the school facility is different by the different people. Like, if we do a gender split or something like, because if we go by the gender split, then of course we'll have to go by the income filter also, because of course the people who come in the BPL population or the lower income groups, that will have a bigger gender ratio. So shall we include that or not? Like, that will actually make it a
So
little complex.
you can avoid. So if you are able to do it on an income level, so you have two approaches. One is gender approach and one is income approach. Now, which one do you think would be more applicable if you have to go for just one? The income one, right?
Come on.
Yeah. If you and because you had completely another section also to solve, that's why it's okay that you break it into and you say ki, I know that dropout rate for male and female are different, but just for the simplification of this problem, I am keeping it. I'm taking the average value. So this represents both male and female dropout. It might be possible that here the male rate is 75 and the female rate is 25% and 50-50 population divide. That's why I'm taking 50%.
Thank you.
Right. So you can
Sir, I
say
have
that,
one
and
question.
if you say this now, if you say this, it also creates a positive impression that you understand what's other. I mean, you understand that this can be further breaking, but for simplicity, you are not breaking it up. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, like for the average number of schools in Delhi, if you go from the area of the Delhi, in a particular 5 kilometers, we have one middle, 2 to 3 middle schools and 5 to 6 like medium, and one is large. So, sir, how we can assume that these are the number of the middle size schools and large? Like I am assuming it one, so maybe the another candidate is assuming two large schools. So I have a little confusion regarding the same.
Yeah. So for that, you can take let's say population density approach. So let's say in 5 square kilometer, what is the population density? If it's a residential area, this is the population density. Okay. Now let's say if you say the pop in 5 kilometers. So let's say you say Delhi area 70% is residential area, 30% is commercial. Okay. And then because all population will stay in some place, the 70% population will the 70% area will soak up all 2 crore people in the Delhi city, right? Now you break it up, okay, let's say 1500 kilometers square was area of Delhi, you take 70% of it, let's say for simplification, let's say 1000 square kilometer, and you had this population of 2 crore, so you can find out the number, what is the number of people in 5 square kilometer area, right? Now you can break it, now you take that average family size in India is 5. So when you say average family size in India is 5, this breaks you into the number of families living in an area. And when you can break it into the number of families living in an area, you can break it into, let's say, each family has on an average 2 kids. So, and these two might be whatever, they might be school going or not going. These is the 2 kids. Now, whatever number this come, okay, 2 kids into number of families in a 5 kilometer square area. Let's say if this numbers come to be 10,000. Now you know that 10,000 is not a number that a single school can accommodate, right? So you can say for 10,000 students, I assume if we even look at a big school, it can accommodate, let's say, 3,000 students, and a small school can accommodate just 600 students. And then you can take this 40-40-20 approach within that and say, okay, so within these 10,000, 40% of the students will be in small schools, so 4,000 will be in small school, and a small school has let's say 600 students on an average. So 4,000 divided by 600 gives you approximately 6.5, or you can say 7 small schools, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it really makes sense. And thank you for that.
It is a bit complex in approach, but again, the very right approach to go from this population side that you should go if you really want to go. Okay, this is the area, this is the population, they will be living in this much area, and then this is the population density in that area. And now by population density, you can break it into number of families, and from families you break it into, okay, 2 kids per family, and 2 kids per family, you already calculated how many of them are going to school and all these things. You say, okay, this is the number of schools required to accommodate this number of kids.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, any other question?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
So, how detailed you should be in your approach? Suppose I also had the same idea to segment the population by age and then by income, but my approach was less detailed than yours. So, ideally, how detailed you should be while solving these?
The best answer to this is you should be able to complete a guesstimate within 15 minutes. Okay, so as you do more and more guesstimates, and you understand that there are just 4 or 5 techniques to do a guesstimate. All those 5 techniques can be applied across all the guesstimate questions that you might face. Okay, once you are able to do that, your speed will automatically increase. So this comes with practice. Initially, when you will do this guesstimate, it might even take you half an hour, and that's okay. When you start practicing and you are done with, let's say, 10, 12, 15 guesstimates on your own, you will understand what is it, how you will actually be able to approach the problem very clearly, and you will be able to do estimates faster. At that moment, you will be able to do it within 15 minutes. Now, as I mentioned, we could have gone further within population, within the sexual divide, gender-wise divide, but we didn't go there because it would have made it more complex at that time. Okay, so this sheet is showing the ideal approach. You might have a number which might differentiate. You might have an approach which might differentiate a bit. Okay, you can ask me, okay, how did you take this estimate of small, medium, and large? And then I would say, okay, I'll have to go from that way, from the population way. And I can say, okay, the small school is something I'm defining which takes 600 students. A large school is something I'm defining which takes 3,000 students, and a medium school is something that I define that takes 1,500 students. And then you break it, okay, then it will not might be 40, 20, then you will have to come from the population approach. But if you say, I am taking this assumption that this is the assumption of schools, and the interviewer will probably say this is open. And you can say, this is what I have read, or I know this is coming. Or then even the income divide, you can say, okay, this is the actual income divide from the economic report of India, or what from whatever report, and this is how 20% people are below poverty line, then 40% are actually lower class, and then within middle class and above, so 20% are actually above middle class, and so 20% are middle class and 20% are high class. So in this case, because high and middle didn't need to be differentiated, that's why we had just middle plus up. So the answer is that you need to do it within 15 minutes. So essentially, the first part of it should be the population part. So you have to calculate two things. You understand you have to calculate two things, and you have to explain the approach, and you have to come with a number. So your school-going children in Delhi should be able to do it within 7 to 8 minutes, and then average children in one school should be able to do it again in the next 7 to 8 minutes. That's how you should approach. If you are able to do it with 7 to 8 minutes, then what is the detail that you need to go into? You need to calculate that. And this comes with practice. This comes with doing more and more guesstimates. Okay. I'll quickly walk you through another guesstimate. So now there is no toll between Delhi and Gurgaon, but let's say few years back, there used to be a toll between Delhi and Gurgaon near MF Mall, and you had to pay. So if I ask you to estimate the daily revenue of Delhi Gurgaon toll plaza, how would you actually do it? So again, the first clarifying question is, anyone having any clarifying question for this one?
The daily traffic flow that is occurring through the toll plaza.
Consider it. So for the first question, do we consider it as a weekday or a weekend? Considering that weekend and weekday had different traffic. So a lot of people travel during weekdays from Gurgaon to Delhi for attending their office and then go back. Which is maybe less because a lot of people which are office goers might not be going on weekend. So you can ask, okay, what day should I consider weekday or weekend? And I'll say consider a weekday. Okay. So you start with certain assumptions. You say when you do it, okay, then you start with the assumption and you say, okay, I'm taking an assumption that they are operating 24/7. Two-wheelers and three-wheelers do not pay any toll. Then okay, daily revenue of the Delhi Gurgaon toll plaza. So there can be multiple sources of revenue. Now you have to state that I am assuming that toll fees is the only revenue. Maybe they are also installing your fast card and they are taking fees for it. Okay, but they're not taking. And the final approach is that, let's say there are 6 lanes. Assumption you are taking is that I'm assuming that across each lane the traffic is uniform. So number across each toll booth. So the simple equation you can break it into is the daily revenue per toll booth into number of toll booths. And now you need to just calculate for one toll booth what is the total daily revenue, or the number of vehicles that we cross. Total number of toll booths, you can say, okay, this is 6 lane one side, 12 lane total. Let's say there are 12 booths. Then you just need to calculate the final answer by 12 or 20, whatever. Okay. Now for that, you need to calculate revenue per toll booth. Can be, what is the fare that you are taking per vehicle, or the number of vehicles that are going through per booth. And then you can break it into traffic hours. So there are low traffic hours, there are medium traffic hours, there are high traffic hours. When there is high traffic hours, they are operating at full capacity, which is so you can define, okay, you can have a traffic distribution that says, okay, in the morning and evening, because it's a weekday that we are considering, there will be a lot of traffic during office hours and returning hours. Then there is noon, then it might be low, and then during midnight it will be very low. Okay, and when it's midnight, it will be operating just at 30% of the capacity. At peak office hour, it is working at 100% capacity, which is that there is no wait time. No wait times in the sense that there is no rest time for the toll booth operator. It is continuously in work, and then during noon it is at 50% capacity. So let's say a car is coming 1 minute, and then for 1 minute it's not coming. It's not coming. It's not like 1 minute, 1 minute not coming. It's like that. The distribution in which the car is coming, it is not at 100% capacity that the person has to work. And then from there you break it. Okay, uh, capacity is the maximum number of vehicle that can cross in booth. Okay, now you say okay, average time taken for a car to pass the toll booth is 15 seconds. So within a minute, 4 cars can pass, and therefore within an hour, 240 vehicles can pass. Now, when it's working on full capacity for 8 hours, 240 vehicles will pass. When it's working at 60% capacity, then 240 into 0.6 number of vehicles will pass. And when it's working at 30% capacity, 72 vehicles will pass per hour. In this case, 144 vehicles per pass per hour. Here you calculate this is the total number of vehicles passing per hour, passing per day through a booth. This is how you're breaking up the vehicles. So if it's a four-wheeler, and you can say 80% of the vehicles will be four-wheelers. So, and this is the Pareto Principle where you can apply. So whenever and it's a fair assumption to apply the Pareto Principle here that 80% of the vehicle passing out would be four-wheelers, and only 20% would be uh, greater than four-wheelers trucks. And whatever be the fees for trucks, maybe X rupees, let's say 70. For two-wheelers, it will be 30. So average weighted revenue would be 42. What weighted total number of vehicles are 3,600. Total number of booths are 20. And this is the route traffic. So how did you break the problem? You break it into, how did you break the problem? You first stated an assumption. You're taking a weekday. You are, say, assuming it's working 24/7. There's no other source of revenue, and then the traffic across booth is uniform. How you are breaking it up? You are breaking it up into then number of booths that are there and what is the daily revenue per booth. Now this is what you can make up yourself. You can take it. Okay, from my personal experience, no, it takes 15 to 20 seconds for a car. You can also have it 20 seconds, and you can say it's 180 vehicles per hour, and that's a fair assumption also. And based on that, certain values will change. Basically, this value will come 22.5 lakhs. That's also okay. Capacity you can define yourself. You can say full capacity is when this peak hours, and let's say medium traffic, I know that it's not full capacity. Let's say it's 60% or 50% of the capacity, and low traffic hours is 25% or 30% of the capacity. And the interviewer will agree to this. Okay, that's all. I think I've already taken a lot of your time, and I might be boring you all now also. So any questions, just final questions, anything that you want to ask on this list? If nothing, great. Thank you for hosting me. Sorry for taking up more time required. I sometimes flow into different directions also, so apologies on that.
No, sir, we would like to thank you for taking out your time for this very insightful session and explaining so in depth about guesstimates. Please accept this small token of gratitude on behalf of Hindu Consulting Group.
Thank you so much, and I hope I was able to help, and I was able to give you some insights around how to do guesstimate. Feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn for any queries that you have. I'll share the deck to your team, and they can share it with you guys. Even later, if you have any queries, feel free to connect. I love doing this. I love talking to people. So thank you guys. Thank you for having me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We request the participants to stay for a little time as we have something prepared for you all.